Hello, hello. Let me check this audio just to make sure this is working. Hello, hello. Yep, I'd say so. All right, so I'm back. What are you doing?
Nothing.
Good. That's the right answer. I'm on my treadmill. So if me moving around makes you car sick, then you don't have to see me. I'm not showing you anything. I'm just on my treadmill while I'm doing this. And boost the speed a little bit. There we go. That may be a little bit much. We'll see. Right. So, I was just watching. Okay. So, I was promising a week ago to do a video about something that's bothering me, which is that people are disengaging with this content, global heating, global climate change, whatever you prefer to call it. The people are really disengaging with this content. And I've been noticing it a lot in maybe the last 6 months or so. For example, people like Jim Bendel uh, moved to Indonesia and has really stopped making content and is much more pessimistic than he used to be. Roger Hallam of Extinction Rebellion is now in prison. Probably will be there for the rest of his life. It's a good guess. Rupert Reed, an Englishman who's a philosopher, has become quite pessimistic. I did kind of a reaction video to something he put up the other day. He used to be really optimistic, and now he's very pessimistic. Now, becoming pessimistic doesn't necessarily mean that you disengage with the content, but it kind of does, because a lot of these people that have been optimistic about how we can deal with global heating and climate change and how we're going to, float all the boats and have social equity and, transgender rights and all this other kind of stuff, and yet reduce our carbon emissions. That sort of optimism was all they had. That's all they had. All they had was this sort of thin veneer of really, frankly, not well thought out, unscientific, non-data driven hopium, lucky rabbit's foot wishing on a star optimism. And that makes me sound like a curmudgeon because I'm not like, oh, great, someone's optimistic. Folks, this isn't a beauty pageant. This isn't, America's Got Talent. Okay, there aren't going to be any winners here. It's all losers. We're all going to lose. And we're going to lose fantastically. And when people had all this false optimism, they were engaging with the content, with the problem, in a way that they could survive the contact. So this was like a superficial, glancing, transitory, close approximation of dealing with the problem of global heating. They didn't really touch it. They didn't get burned by it. They didn't get scared by it. They didn't touch it. They never got near it enough to be horrified. They just did this drive-by glancing. Oh, look at that. Oh, interesting. And they just kept going and had this optimism about, well, we can handle that. It looks like something we can handle. And viewing it from a distance through rose-colored glasses and saying, oh, well, we can probably deal with this. Well, we can't. We just can't. And if there was a way that I thought realistically that we could deal with this, and by deal, I'm using the word deal in the way that people use the word when they mean make a deal. Because there's another word, deal with it, where you're like cope, right? Oh, I just broke a shoelace. Well, deal with it, right? Keep going. Just, don't let it stop you. That's dealing with it. But the other use of the word deal with it is to make a deal, to cut a deal, make a deal with the devil, however you want to use the euphemism. So basically, these people are not, they're using the second use of the term deal. They're not dealing with it like a broken shoelace. Like, all right, we have to keep going. We have to survive this. I still have to walk in these shoes. They're dealing with it like, well, we'll just make a deal. And that's all it's been. It's been like business deals with global heating. The Paris Climate Accords and the 1.5 and the 2.0 and even the science of studying global climate change, global heating, and the physics of that has been like a business transaction. Let's make a deal. And the deal has been since the 60s. You don't interrupt business as usual. And in compensation, here's some money. It's a deal. It's a financial transaction. Or as I like to say, it becomes transactional. That we have a problem. I could make it a big mess. I could talk about it. I could scare the horses. But to keep me from doing that, you're going to fund my research. You're going to fund my academics. You're going to fund my graduate students. And all these departments and all this research and all these papers and all these Paris Climate Accords and all this stuff, you're going to throw money at this. And the deal is, I don't make a big deal out of it. And that's what we've been doing since the 60s. Well, what happened recently is that it's predictable, and it had to happen. Nature is not in on the deal. Nature's not in on the deal. This has all been humans. Physics doesn't care about the deals we're making. Physics never cared about the Paris Climate Accords. Physics never cared about whether 1.5 was the goal or 2.0 was the goal or 2.1 or whether it has to be 1.5 for 20 years and not 3. Physics doesn't care. Physics is just doing what physics does. Nature was never in on the deal that we were making with ourselves and with each other. Physics was never part of that. And in 2023, physics said, hey, are you watching? I got something I want to show you. And in 2023 and continuing into 2024, getting worse, science lost its mind. The collective body of science, as focused on global heating and the resulting climate change, pretty much lost its collective mind because of what happened in the Earth system. Basically, sea surface temperatures went through the roof. Through the roof. Off the edge of the map. We are in uncharted territory. No one knows what happened. If they tell you they know what happened, they don't. I have heard not one credible voice offer a credible theory as to what happened. Not one. And when I saw the data that first came out in mid-2023, when somebody said, Houston, we've got a problem. When I saw that data, I said at the time, as soon as I saw it, I said, my very first thought at that exact moment of realization was, they're not going to know what happened, and they're not going to have a theory, and we are screwed. As soon as I saw the data, I knew that was the end of the road. That was physics walking up to us and telling us, excuse me, I know you're making all these deals and you're going to fund this and you're going to research that and you're going to do the other thing. But I got something I want to show you. And at that point, all the deals are off. We must stop burning fossil fuels today with immediate effect, completely end all extraction of fossil fuels today. All of it, 100%. Not a careful drawdown, not something equitable or fair, not something that's going to, deal with colonialism. We must end it today, right now, because this world is coming apart right around our head. And if we were on the Titanic and we hit the iceberg and maybe we had some doubts about what that meant, now we don't. This ship is going down. They said it wouldn't, but it is. They said it couldn't, but it can. And now we have to get off. We have to get to the lifeboats. And what that means for different people in different locations, I can't really address. The as closest I can come to a universal response to what is happening to us now is to reestablish village life. You're going to have to live hyper-local. You're going to have your own sources of food and clothing and shelter. That means, fields, working your fields. Pretty much everyone is in agriculture. You're not going to like the sound of that. Too bad. That's what it's come down to. Now, other people with more money, might not want villages and working the fields and dealing with animals and dealing with manure and fixing chairs rather than buying new ones. They may not want to deal with that. So maybe they set up wealthy elite enclaves and, castles in the sky or whatever they're going to do, right? Floating cities. I don't know. Different types of the same thing, of getting out of the way of this thing. Circling your wagons, creating a highly localized, locally controlled, absolute authority over your survival. Because that's what we have to do now. And I was listening to Climate Adam, another YouTube channel, Climate Adam. I can't get into his videos more than about 3 minutes before I start to lose my mind. And he's very quick to tell you at the very beginning, like in the first 10 seconds, he tells you, I'm an Oxford educated climate scientist, and this is what I think. I don't know how someone can be an Oxford educated climate scientist and be so self-deluded. And like a lot of people who are disengaging with this problem, he's not in denial. He says, yeah, we have, ocean temperatures are off the chart. Every year is the hottest year on record for planet Earth. And, there are terrible things happening now in the climate systems, terrible things happening in habitat. And, parts of the Earth are becoming uninhabitable. He's just on board with all that. And then the very next thing is like, and we have to make individual changes. And you have to drive less and fly less and eat vegan, it's all this bullshit. Yeah, sure, do all those things. That's really important. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But that's not what's going to save us. That's disengaging with the problem. That's admitting there's a problem and then saying, but I'm not going to engage with this problem. I'm just going to let individuals figure it out for themselves. And I'm not going to say that. I don't care what you do individually. Because what you're going to be able to do individually is going to be strongly curtailed by the fact that we collectively must stop extracting and refining and delivering and using fossil fuels. Now, what you can now do without fossil fuels, I guess go ahead and do. I don't know. I'm telling you individual what you're going to do. It's going to be whatever you're capable of doing at that point. Because the one thing we must do at this point is we must leave all fossil fuels in the ground. That's all there is to it. That is the task. That is the requirement. We must do that. And I don't mean we must do it in 20 years, saving all the, isolated tribesmen in Amazonia. We have to do it now. And if we take a hit, and if there are fatalities, and if there are losses, and if people lose their jobs or whatever, then that's what we have to do. And the response to that by people like Climate Adam is that, well, that's terrible. then you're condemning people to terrible lives, and they won't have economic growth, and they won't have jobs, and they won't have schools for their children. It's like, no, I'm not condemning them to that. I'm not condemning anyone to losing their job. When we stop burning fossil fuels, they are condemned to death. Death? Because nobody can survive without fossil fuels. A lot of people are going to die. That's as simple as that. I know that. And before they die, they'll lose their car, they'll lose their job, and they'll lose their economics, and they'll lose their bank account, and they'll lose their home, and they'll lose their shirt off their back, and they'll lose a lot of things. And then they'll die. And probably only the elites, the Jeff Bezoses and the Elon Musks, are the ones who will make it through, because they'll have their castles in the sky, literal castles in the actual sky. Basically, a lifeboat. It's going to take a lot of effort just to build the lifeboats, just to define what those are, just to make sure that the materials are available and that the people know how to cooperate. Yeah, living on a lifeboat's a big deal. People who go into space to live on the space shuttle, the International Space Station, or who go to Mars, if that ever happens, they will have to have special psychological evaluations how well they can get along with people. You're not gonna have AR-15s on Mars so that someone who's lost their fucking mind can go kill a bunch of kids in the schoolyard. It's going to be a very tight ship on these lifeboats. And anybody, group of people who create their own village, a medieval style village, where they've got fields and they've got, granaries and animals, and and they're building huts out of whatever materials they can find. People who create villages to survive this, to have some authority about their own survival, they're going to have to live completely different lives. And if you're one of those people who needs to go to Disneyland 4 times a year, then you're not going to be ready for this. You're just not going to be ready. You're going to be one of those people who's outside having a tantrum in the middle of the street because, you can't figure your shit out. And the observation I want to make here is that the people who are closest to this problem, who understand it the best, who really can't avert their eyes, who can't say, oh, it's just a hoax, or who can't say, oh yeah, we'll just figure something out, fill in the blanks, whatever you want to imagine that is. The people who are closest to this are disengaging with it. They're disengaging with it. I certainly am. I'm about as close to this topic as any living human being can be. I am looking at this with absolute clarity, data-driven, completely committed to understanding it, completely committed to communicating the facts of the situation. And I am largely, I find, disengaged. Disengaged. This is the moment when I'm on the Titanic, and being an engineering type, I've done the math, and I've talked to the crew and the captain, and I figured out on my own, as I'm able to do, that the ship is going down. And I'm standing on the deck of the Titanic, and I know this thing is going down. And that's the point where I recognize that my responsibility to myself, and if I want, extend that to my immediate biological family, is to survive. The ship's going down. I have to survive. And if I have my family with me, I'm going to try and make them survive too. But if I can't find them, and they're not with me, and they're not on board, and they just don't want to deal with it, then I can't help them. My responsibility and your responsibility, number one responsibility, is your individual survival. Because listen, if nobody on this planet takes responsibility for their own survival, then nobody's going to survive. And that's just how it is. The challenge is great enough. The challenge at this point that we're facing, and we're facing it with immediate effect. We are already in it. We are in the jaws of this beast. And the challenge we are facing is going to require every single living human being to deal with their immediate survival. This entire planet is in the same state as the Titanic. It's all going down. The upper decks will be a little less affected than the lower decks, or affected in a different way, or have different options. But this whole thing is going down. And everyone on it is going to have to deal with that fact. And your responsibility is to not die. If you can extend that responsibility to other people so they don't die, then that's good. And that's a plus. And that's maybe even a moral decision. But your actual responsibility, first and foremost, before you can help anybody else, before you can even think about offering opportunities or alternatives to other people, is to make sure you know the way out. You can save yourself. And once you figure that out, once you have located a lifeboat, you made sure that it'll float, and that it'll how to get it down into the water, how to get people on it, how to get away, until you've figured all that out yourself, you can't offer that solution to anybody else. You are responsible for your survival. And when you figure that out, then you can think about other people. And the only way forward that I can see, as much as I've thought about this, I keep coming back to the same thing. It's not to be hopeful, and it's not to be inclusive, and it's not to be fair. It is to create villages, village life, where a number of people of the same frame of mind agree to take a chance on each other. They're going to pull together, circle their wagons, pool their resources, bring together all of their different capabilities and training, all of their creativity, all of their willingness, and pull together. And honestly, I can't think of anything else. And nowhere in there did I mention voting for a party or buying or not buying a particular consumer product, or eating a certain way, or traveling another way, or wearing a certain type of clothing. Never mentioned any of that. None of that matters. For one thing, without fossil fuels, it all ends. Everything I just said ends. The only thing you're going to have without fossil fuels is yourself. And your 3.5 pounds of brain, and whatever people you're with, whoever they are. So part of survival is you need to be thinking about, where do you need to be and who do you need to be with? And now is the time to make that decision. And if you choose not to, then you're going to be wherever you end up with whoever's there. And that's also an outcome. And then when the time comes, that becomes your people. That's your village. That's your family. That's your tribe. Those are going to be the ones. And if you found yourself surrounded by maniacs waving AR-15s and the American flag, then you may not have much of a chance. That may not be the right group of people. I say that, maybe it works out, but my guess is it's not going to. Who do you want to be with? Well, I guess you want to be with people who are as dedicated to survival as you are. Everybody must be, and this is going to sound like a contradiction, but it's not. This is actually how it works. Every individual must be absolutely 100% committed to their survival, not to their politics, not to their religion, not to economic growth, not to having title to land, not to having a fancy car, not to having gold jewelry. Every single individual must be absolutely focused on their own survival. And then the second thing they have to have, which sounds like the contradiction, is the absolute clarity of understanding that they can't do that alone. That's it. That's the two things you must cultivate in yourself and each other. You must at all times be absolutely 100% focused on your survival. To the extent that you might even abandon a particular lifeboat if you think it's sinking. You may have to leave your religion. You may find out that the people you're with are maniacs, and you must abandon your religion and go seek another community. You might have to do that because your focus is not on the survival of your religion or your political party or anything else. Your survival of yourself and anyone else you can bring with you. And then after you've focused on that and you've recognized your absolute priority, then you have to figure out how to work with others because you can't do it alone. And that sounds like a contradiction, but just sit back and think about tribal life, village life. And if you can't figure that out, then go watch some YouTube videos. Go read some books on the Middle Ages. Figure it out. Just do it. Do it. Get educated. Figure it out now. Just figure it out right now. Because everything I just said is absolutely correct. I'll say it again. Your responsibility is not to solve climate change. Your responsibility is to survive it. If you can bring people along with you in that, then it's good. But that's not your priority. You have to figure it out first for yourself. And then you can try and convince others. I say it that way because you're probably going to fail. You're probably not going to bring anybody. And then the second thing you have to do is, because you can't do it alone, but you will be alone, but you can't do it alone, then you have to find people who are of the same frame of mind, but they realize, as you do, that you can't do it alone. Then you form a village of people, absolutely 100% focused on survival. And when I state it that way, then you realize, yes, that's actually what it takes. That means you're all in the lifeboat. Everybody's either bailing out water or rowing or tending to the people who can't do these things for themselves. Everybody's engaged. Everybody is bending their back to the labor. Everybody is doing whatever has to be done. No complaints, no questions, no ideology, no bitching about my trips to Disneyland. Everybody's engaged. And they're all focused on their individual survival. And that is the crux of it. That is the focus that brings people together to cooperate. Because they realize very quickly they can't do it alone. They intend to survive. That is their focus. Nothing else matters. Not religion, not politics, not economics, nothing. And they realize they can't do it alone. And that's how you get a village. Village as lifeboat. Lifeboat as village. That's how you do it. And we'll be creating these villages, literal villages, metaphorically lifeboats, but literal villages all over the planet on accident or on purpose. There will be tens of thousands of them, although not more than tens of thousands. I can't imagine there being many, many tens of thousands of groups of people who come together like this. We are seriously fucked up in the head. We have seriously drank the Kool-Aid, especially in the West, Europe, America, South America. We have lost nearly all of our cultural DNA on how to do this. It's going to be extremely difficult. People are going to be dragging their politics into it. People are going to be dragging their religion into it. People are going to be trying to form groups that they're familiar with and comfortable with, like religious groups, political parties, ideologies. Those are probably people that are not going to make it. They're just not going to make it. They're focused on the wrong thing. They're focused on ideology. They're not focused on survival. And they won't bail the boat, and they won't row, and they won't repair anything, and they won't do the right things. They'll be spouting ideology, demanding their rights, arguing about which flag we're going to fly. Yeah, what can I say? Throw these people overboard. And if you're in a community that's made up entirely of these people and they're arguing about which flag to fly, leave, get out, because your responsibility is primarily from the first principles to your own survival. That's your priority. And why am I even having this conversation? The state of this planet here at the end of 2024, the state of the planet is grim. We are in the jaws of the beast. We're now on the menu. We are the main entree on the menu. And this is not going to go down well at all. And I don't know how many years we have, 2, 3, to figure out our exit strategies. Yeah, about that. I don't think we get to the year 2030 and human society is recognizable at all. Donald Trump is entering office in 2025 in January. The next president of the United States will be in 2029. I don't know that we'll even have another election. And it's not just because of MAGA and Republicans and Donald Trump, although that's a contributing factor. I don't think we'll be organized enough as a nation to pull off something like that. We may be already done. And in 4 years, when people might be thinking about, we should have another presidential election. Why not? It's been 4 years. Why not? No one may want the job. There may not be a job. There might not even be a federal government. We're in a really bad, very dangerous place. And you need to start thinking in concrete terms about what you're going to do. My advice is get to the lifeboats. And in this case, a lifeboat is essentially constructing villages in your neighborhood. I don't know where you're going to be when you do this. I don't know how you're going to bring people to the task. You're probably going to be where you are now, and you're probably going to be working with whoever's around you. And what do you do? What's it look like? How do you proceed? I don't really know. I'm writing a book, short novella, almost just a long story about how a group of people do that. And the key takeaway is none of them were ready for it. Nobody was thinking about it. It hit them like a bolt of lightning. Modernity came to a halt in a week. And that's not out of the question. And then they had 100 days to figure it out. Everything happened immediately, very fast. Everything fell apart, just like the Titanic. Hit the iceberg, 6 hours later, it's below the surface, sunk, or whatever it was. It was immediate. For all practical purposes, it was immediate. And that's how this is going to be. And I don't know what sets it off, and I don't know how much time we're going to have, but when the avalanche starts, then it just goes. It goes, and all you're going to be doing is standing there with your jaws open, saying, what just happened? Now is the time to start thinking about what you're going to do during 100 days. Probably that's optimistic. We have no time. And I'm not interested in platitudes anymore about how we have time and how we need another Paris Climate Accord, and we just need a couple of more COPs, and we just need, we need more legislation, we need better politicians, we need to figure out the economics. I'm not interested in any of that. All of that is keeping us from recognizing that we're screwed. Because we are. Physics has told us we're out of time. So we are. We're out of time. And what do you do with that knowledge? Well, I think you start taking things seriously. And you start thinking about your life and how you're going to endure, how you're going to survive this, in particular without fossil fuels and, of course, without modernity. Who are you going to be with and where are you going to be when all of that goes down? Now is the time to start thinking about it. So that's how I'm feeling at the end of 2024. It sucks. I wish there was good news. There's none. There's no good news. There's nothing. I have nothing for you. It's worse than I could have imagined. And that's going to be the story going forward. Well, that was unexpected. Oh, that's worse than expected. Oh, we were expecting that for 100 years. Here it is. Okay, that's just going to be the story going forward. And all of it is about we've run out of time. Be where you need to be with who you need to be with. And now is the time to start thinking about that. Where, with who? And who are those people? And what is their mindset? And what are they thinking? And what are they not thinking? What have they given up, like politics and economics? And what have they embraced, like individual survival? And do they realize that they actually can't do individual survival by themselves? And if you get those people, and that's how they're thinking, and you're in the right place where you can pull this off, then maybe you have village life. I don't know. Where does this even happen? Who's going to pull this off? Who's going to pull this together? I don't know. We're going to find out. And we're going to find out the hard way. We're going to find out on accident. We're going to find out because we have to. No one's planning for this. No one's making any noise that we have to start making a move, a lateral move to get out of the way of this juggernaut called global heating. No one's having that conversation with you. And even when I have that conversation with you, I don't have the answers. Because guess what? There aren't any. There are no answers. There's just problems. And you and your people are going to have to solve those problems. And where you can't, then you have very few forks in the road at this point. One of them leads towards failure, which probably implies dying. But another one is you just have to escape. Try again. Try someplace else. Try another group of people. Try another place. And eventually, if you're quick on your feet and you learn quickly, then what you're going to learn is what I've just said. You need to be focused on your individual survival. You're not doing this for ideological reasons. It's all about you. And at the same time, the exact same time that it's all about you, it's all about us. Because you can't do it by yourself. And if that all seems contradictory, well, then you just need to start wrapping your head around it. This is going to be hard. This is going to be humiliating. Everybody has some important lessons to learn, and they're either going to learn them or they're not going to learn them. And you need to figure out who those people are who figure it out. That's your task. That's your homework. I don't know when I'm going to do this again. Like I say, I'm kind of disengaging. We'll get the content myself. I don't have much else to say. I really don't. And that's a sign, I think, that I understand. I understand what I have to do. And that's the key. Do it. You don't have to talk about it. Do it. And when you figure out what you have to do, then what you're supposed to do is clear. And you're not sitting on here talking about it. You're doing it. And you have to find those people who you can do it with. And maybe you can have some sort of conscious community, like people who believe the same religion that you do, or people who believe the same politics that you do. But I think it's going to be much harder than that. And you're probably going to be in your neighborhood, in your community, with your neighbors, people you've known for a few years. And maybe you know a little bit about what they're thinking. And you know some of their skills. And maybe you kind of trust them. And that's going to be your community. Get to know those people. And if they're the wrong people, and it's obviously the wrong people, well, then prepare to find another group of people. And do that quickly. Because we've run out of time. And once we've run out of fossil fuels and someone comes along and turns them off, then my guess is you're not going to have nowhere to go, and you're not going to have any way to get there. You know, the door is closing. The window of opportunity is closing. And when the door is shut, then that's where you are. That's as far as you got. And good luck with whoever you're with. Because that's now your people, and that's your lifeboat, and that's who's gonna get you through the dark night. And I hope they're up to the task, and I hope you're up to the task, because that's now the task before us. And at the end of the year, when everybody's optimistically talking about global heating and climate change and how we've done this and we've done that and we can turn the corner, I want you to remember, it's bullshit. Physics doesn't care. The deals we make. Physics doesn't care at all. So long as we keep burning fossil fuels, then this just becomes a bigger and a bigger dumpster fire. Because that's physics. That's how physics works. We have to stop. And all the deals we want to make, if they don't involve stopping, leaving fossil fuels in the ground, then this just gets worse. It's already bad enough right now. It's bad enough right now. Just the damage we've done with the heating we've done, the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, just the damage we've done to the habitat, to each other. We're in a bad place right now. We might not survive this at all, period. Complete extinction event is not off the table. The only thing that puts it off the table is if people start taking personal responsibility for their individual survival in a collective manner. And good luck with that. If you don't understand that, sit back and think about it, what that means. All right, I'm done. I've got, what is this? 0.7 kilometers, probably. Not very far. But hey, I got to do a video while I was at it. So, yeah. So give some thought to how you're going to do this. Give some thought to what it means. We have to get to the lifeboats. That's an individual decision. And you do need to make sure that you're in a lifeboat with people who understand what it means to be on a lifeboat and helping each other to survive and what that involves. That's going to be a tough sell. That's going to be a very difficult sell. But that is the work. You do have to figure that out for yourself. And maybe I'll keep coming on here and talking about that, giving people ideas, encouraging people to keep that front of mind. But I am not optimistic at all. I'm not optimistic. Good luck.